Trump sharpening his credentials as well as the law and order candidate in a speech in Wisconsin last night. Watch.
The violence, riots, and destruction that have taken place in Milwaukee is an assault on the right of all citizens to live in security and to live in peace. The main victims of these riots are law-abiding African-American citizens living in these neighborhoods. There's no compassion in tolerating lawless conduct for anyone. Crime and violence is an attack on the poor and will never be accepted in a Trump administration.
This coming as the Republican presidential nominee is set to receive his first national security briefing later today. I want to bring in right now Andrew Peek, a former U.S. Army intelligence officer and former advisor to the U.S. and NATO commander in Afghanistan. Good to see you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So what's your take on that speech last night? What was your most important takeaway?
Look, I think as long as Donald Trump sticks to those themes that carried him through the Republican National Convention, the law and order theme, the national security theme, and the economy, those issues where Americans trust him, he's going to win this thing. As long as world events sort of give him a little helping hand as well. As
a former advisor to NATO and with all of your experience in terms of foreign policy, do you think Donald Trump has the goods to lead, given the issues that we see today with regard to ISIS and other foreign policy issues? Yeah,
the paradox of Donald Trump's foreign policy is that he's actually to the left of Obama on a lot of issues, like Russia, like the Middle East, and yet Americans trust him more. I personally have no worries about Donald Trump as commander-in-chief. I think he is a dominating presence. I think he's not afraid to assert American power. And I think he has the respect of a lot of the armed forces as well.
Andrew, do you think he has... There were a lot of concerns about some of the things he said about NATO in particular. Now, as you say, he went some way, I think, to addressing those concerns in his speech on Monday. But do you think he understands the importance of NATO, both in terms of the broader strategic alliance, but also in terms of the potential that NATO can offer for the fight against terrorism? You've been in Afghanistan.
I do. No, I think actually Donald Trump's comments about NATO got blown a little bit out of proportion. Saying that we are basing American participation in NATO on the contributions of our European allies is not substantially different than what American presidents have said for the past 60 years. We have always asked the Europeans to carry more. And frankly, when you look at our willingness versus some of the Western Europeans' willingness to defend the eastern frontier of NATO, the Baltic states, Poland, etc., I feel very good about where America is and where Donald Trump is going forward vis-a-vis Vladimir Putin.
So one of the things that I've heard a lot of people say is, I can see the first 6 months him getting angry, being reactive, being impulsive. This is one of the things that people, his whole reacts to bait all the time, right? So people are really concerned about this in foreign policy. What do you think? Do you think that we should be concerned?
I think his temperament is the biggest question out there. You don't want someone who can be baited by a tweet into doing something rash. I do think there is an element of being in the White House that makes you grow into being the president. It makes the candidate into a statesman. You saw it happen with Barack Obama. I think you saw it happen some with George W. Bush, particularly after 9/11. And I think it'll happen with Donald Trump also.
That's a really good point, because when you think about the past presidents, they started at similar places. So you hope that he grows into it, and you hope that he surrounds himself with smart people and people who could take these leadership roles. Remember, he said that he said this on this show last week, he's going to announce some of his cabinet members right after Labor Day. We'll see if that generates trust and confidence.
Right.
Andrew, good to see you.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you so much. Andrew Peek joining us there.